While the Zika virus may not seem as large a threat as last summer, doctors are warning the public not to let your guard down. This is especially advised for women who are pregnant or trying to be. Cases of the birth defect-causing virus have fallen from last year's peak in parts of Latin America and the Caribbean, but Zika hasn't disappeared from the region. It may be hard to predict how much risk people face in these locations, but pregnant women still are being urged not to travel to a country or area with reported cases of Zika. Those trying to conceive are advised to ask their doctor how long to wait after going to a location with active Zika infection.
The Associated Press has reported that a wildfire burning Wednesday through a dense Arizona forest has forced thousands of people from their homes, closed a major road, and created a huge plume of smoke over the same area devastated by a blaze that killed 19 firefighters 4 years ago. The fire is burning in communities around Prescott, a mountain city about 100 miles north of Phoenix. It draws a mist of desert dwellers escaping the heat, along with retirees and visitors to its famed Old West-themed Whiskey Row. The fire has charred 32 square miles while being fanned by winds ranging to 35 miles per hour. More than 500 firefighters are battling the blaze. One firefighter suffered a minor injury.
On Thursday, Indiana said that they may appeal a U.S. court ruling that blocked parts of the state's latest abortion law. Critics have said that the ruling would deter girls under 18 who lacked parent approval from getting an abortion. Indiana law already required parental consent for minors unless a judge provided a waiver known as a judicial bypass. The new law allowed the judge to notify parents if the waiver is granted. However, several groups argued that it created an unconstitutional burden on minors and would create a chilling effect.
Significant costs are expected to be incurred from new security measures on flights to the United States. The costs will likely be borne by airports, airlines, and passengers. The airports with the most U.S.-bound flights in Europe are London Heathrow, Paris Charles de Gaulle, Frankfurt, Amsterdam Schiphol, and Dublin. However, there was also some relief that the new measure would avoid an extension of the ban on passengers, bringing large electronic devices such as laptops and tablets into cabins.
This story may make you second-guess your iced coffee order. The BBC's Watchdog program said it recently found 3 of the UK's largest coffee chains were using ice containing bacteria found in human poop. An investigation reportedly uncovered, quote, varying levels, end quote, of bacteria in ice used at Starbucks, Cafe Nero, and Costa Coffee. The report also said some samples taken from the surfaces of tables, trays, and high chairs at all 3 chains tested positive for the same bacteria. An expert at the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health told the BBC such bacteria are, quote, the source of human disease. A microbiologist at New York University told Business Insider, quote, where there are fecal bacteria present, it is an indicator that there could be other germs that can make you sick. Both Starbucks and Cafe Nero are investigating the claims, while Costa Coffee has already changed its policies on handling and storing ice. For United News International, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
President Donald Trump has once again used Twitter inappropriately. Wah, wah. But this time, author J.K. Rowling trolled him. On Thursday, Trump posted a tweet about Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, hosts of MSNBC's Morning Joe. In the post, attacking Brzezinski's beauty and Scarborough's intelligence level, the tweet read, I heard poorly rated Morning Joe speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore. Then how come low IQ Crazy Mika along with Psycho Joe came... It continued to read, to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me. She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. However, the Harry Potter creator responded using a quote from Abraham Lincoln. The tweet read, nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power.
A major ransomware attack is spreading globally. Businesses in the U.S., France, Ukraine, Russia, and other countries reported suffering ransomware attacks on June 27th. The program holds computer files hostage and demands the user pay $300 in Bitcoin. Once the payment is received, the hackers say they will then send a key to unlock the files. In a bright red font, the malware says, quote, perhaps you are busy looking for a way to recover your files, but don't waste your time. Nobody can recover your files without our decryption service. Reuters says the ransomware has infected computers at Rosneft, Russia's biggest oil company. Ukrainian government computers and Ukraine's central bank were also disrupted. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said in a statement it discourages people from paying the ransom because there is no guarantee the files will actually be unlocked. For United News International, I'm Neela Uni.
Police said a man was arrested on Thursday after attempting to drive his vehicle through a crowd gathered outside a mosque in the Paris suburb of Créteil. According to a police statement, the man rammed his SUV into protective barriers outside the Créteil mosque multiple times around 6:30 p.m. local time. Police said because he couldn't get through the barriers, he tried to go down another route but hit an obstacle and fled. No one was wounded in the assault and the driver was arrested at his home. The statement said the police firmly condemn this act and are doing everything to investigate and understand the motivation of the driver.
According to a new study, endangered killer whales are having problems with pregnancy because there isn't enough fish to eat. Researchers analyzed hormones in orca excrement and found that more than 2/3 of orca pregnancies failed over a 7-year period. The failed pregnancies have been linked to nutritional stress due to a lack of Chinook salmon. The study's lead author, Sam Wasser, said, "A large number of whales are conceiving, but when nutrition is poor, they don't sustain those pregnancies."
According to a new federal report released Thursday, the majority of hate crimes experienced by U.S. residents over a 12-year period were not reported to police. The news stoked advocate concerns about ongoing tensions between law enforcement and Black and Latino communities. More than half of the 250,000 hate crimes that happened each year between 2004 and 2015 went unreported to law enforcement for a variety of reasons. They were handled some other way, or people did not come forward because they did not feel it was important or that police would help.
CNN has reported that NASA is hoping for some better weather as it attempts to launch a much-anticipated rocket Thursday morning after scrubbing the launch too many times to count. The Terrier improved Malamute-sounding rocket is expected to create a light show of blue, green, and red clouds visible on much of the East Coast from New York to North Carolina. The launch window will last from 4:25 a.m. to 4:48 a.m. Eastern Time. The rocket's launch has been delayed several times since May 31st, with the last attempt on June 24th foiled by extensive cloud cover. Previous attempts were scrubbed for various reasons, from strong winds and clouds to boats in the potential payload landing area.
2 years after winding down its military operation in Afghanistan, NATO has agreed to send more troops to the war-ravaged country to help train and work alongside the Afghan security forces. The move comes in response to a request from NATO commanders to provide around 3,000 troops. Speaking ahead of the NATO defense ministers' meeting in Brussels Thursday, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that 15 nations have already pledged additional contributions, and that he expected more pledges later in the day. U.S. and allied forces have been fighting for nearly 16 years against Taliban Islamists who harbored al-Qaeda militants behind the attacks on New York and Washington in September of 2001.
On Wednesday, the Trump administration set new criteria for visa applicants from 6 mainly Muslim countries. It requires all refugees have a close family or business tie to the United States. The move came after the Supreme Court partially restored President Donald Trump's executive order. It has been widely criticized as a ban on Muslims. Visas that have been already approved will not be revoked. Instructions issued by the State Department, however, say that new applicants from Syria, Sudan, Somalia, Libya, Iran, and Yemen must prove a relationship with a parent, spouse, child, adult son or daughter, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, or sibling already in the United States to be eligible. The same requirement holds for would-be refugees from all nations that are still awaiting approval for admission to the U.S. This is the case with some exceptions.
In December 2016, Pope Francis wrote a letter to bishops mourning the pain the Catholic Church has caused sexually abused children. He promised to take all necessary actions to ensure the abuses would stop, but these promises have hit a wall. Francis's plan for a tribunal to try bishops accused of covering up abuse was halted. 2 abuse survivors appointed to his commission to protect children have quit or been placed on a leave of absence. Then one of his top advisors, Cardinal George Pell, was charged with sexual assault on Wednesday. The accusations against Pell put Francis in a tough spot. While he has pledged to punish officials guilty of sexual abuse, he is also quick to offer mercy to sinners, especially those with whom he is closely connected. John Thabis, author of The Vatican Diaries, stated, "I think he has a wide tolerance for people who are advising him, and sometimes that gets him into trouble."
Police said Thursday the most senior member of the Catholic Church in Australia, Cardinal George Pell, has been charged with multiple historical sexual assault offenses. When he served as the Archbishop of Melbourne from 1996 to 2001, Pell had previously denied covering up abuse committed by priests. He acknowledged, though, that his predecessor, Archbishop Frank Little, had destroyed documents to protect priests. Victoria Deputy Police Commissioner Shane Patton said at a news conference, "I want to be perfectly clear. The process and the procedures that have been followed in the charging of Cardinal Pell have been the same that have been applied in a whole range of historical sex offenses whenever we investigate them."
According to a first-of-its-kind detailed projection of potential climate change effects at the local level, poor and southern U.S. counties will get hit hardest by global warming. The study was published Thursday in the Journal of Science. It calculates probable economic harms and benefits for more than 3,100 counties in the United States under different possible scenarios for worldwide emissions of heat-trapping gases. It averages local income by the end of the century, looking at agriculture, energy costs, labor costs, coastal damage from rising seas, crime and deaths, then estimates the effect. Researchers computed the possible effects of 15 types of impacts for each county across 29,000 simulations.
According to a recent survey by Groupon, the average woman spends nearly $250,000 on her appearance in her lifetime. The deal site asked a group of users who say they routinely spend money on their appearance just how much they typically shelled out for beauty products by month, year, and over their lifetime. Coming out to about $4,000 a year, women spend over $50,000 on their faces alone. Men as well are dropping serious amounts of money on beauty products, spending just 20% less than women on their grooming habits, with a lifetime expense of around $175,000.
The owners of 3 Mile Island have notified regulators of plans to prematurely close the nuclear power plant. In a June 20th letter to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Exelon Generation Company writes that 3 Mile Island's Unit 1 reactor will close on or about September 30th, 2019. That's 15 years before its license is due to expire. TMI's other reactor hasn't operated since its partial meltdown in March 1979 prompted sweeping changes to nuclear regulations in the United States. While some radioactive gases were released into the central Pennsylvania air, studies concluded the health effects from the accident were negligible. Meanwhile, the decision to close the rest of TMI is based on financial concerns, not safety ones. The nuclear plant can't make a profit. It's reportedly lost $300 million in the past 5 years. The legislature's Nuclear Energy Caucus says the premature closure presents challenges for the state's economy and environment. For United News International, I'm Matt Paul.
Military officials said options for North Korea have recently been updated and are ready to be presented to President Donald Trump if Pyongyang decides to conduct an underground nuclear or ballistic missile test. If the country made that move, it would indicate the regime has made significant progress toward developing a weapon that could attack the U.S. Military officials also said the North Koreans continue to make advances in their ability to hide their actions from the United States.
In a move that is likely to irk China, the Trump administration notified Congress Thursday that it intends to sell Taiwan a $1.4 billion arms package. The move is the first such sale under President Donald Trump. An official familiar with the deal told CNN that the package would include advanced missiles and torpedoes. The announcement of the arms sale comes the same day the Treasury Department announced various sanctions. One would sever U.S. financial ties with China's Bank of Dandong, which the administration claims is a pipeline to support alleged illicit North Korean financial activity.
The third highest-ranking Vatican official, Cardinal George Pell, has long been accused of mishandling the Church's response to clergy abuse scandals in his native Australia. Now police in Victoria say that he might have been one of the abusers. According to Reuters, Australian police say the 76-year-old Vatican treasurer faces multiple charges in respect of historic sexual offenses, involving more than one accuser. Last year, Pope Francis said that he wouldn't comment on the allegations until the justice system speaks.
Venezuela's Supreme Court has banned Attorney General Luisa Ortega from leaving the country. It has also frozen her assets ahead of a pretrial hearing scheduled for July 4th. The inquiry was requested by an ally of President Nicolas Maduro to determine if Ortega committed unspecified grave errors while in her position. Ortega has been a vocal critic of Maduro's government. Venezuela is in the midst of a political and humanitarian crisis, which has brought thousands of people onto the streets for mass protests demanding a change of government.
Reuters has reported that the Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said on Thursday that the country's government wants to extend counter-sanctions on the European Union until the end of 2018. Medvedev was speaking a day after the EU formally extended its economic sanctions on Russia, imposed in July of 2014 following Moscow's annexation of Ukraine's Crimea region and Moscow's support for separatists in eastern Ukraine. Moscow denies direct involvement in the conflict despite NATO's assertions its troops are supporting the rebels.
NATO's chief announced that U.S. allies plan to boost their defense spending significantly this year, a move done partly in response to intense pressure from President Donald Trump. On June 28th, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that Europe's NATO allies and Canada will jointly raise defense spending by 4.3% in 2017. Trump has repeatedly criticized the amount NATO member countries spend on their militaries. Stoltenberg indicated that the higher spending, some $295 billion this year, comes because the organization wants to show the U.S. that it is committed to bearing more costs. Stoltenberg told reporters that NATO has really shifted gears in terms of spending, adding, quote, "The trend is up and we intend to keep it up." Despite the upward trend, the spending by all other NATO countries is still far less than the United States spends alone. For United News International from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
CNN has reported that China's President Xi Jinping underlined his commitment to one country, two systems as he arrived in Hong Kong to mark 2 decades of Chinese rule in the former British territory. It's Xi's first visit to the Chinese Special Administrative Region and one that is expected to be dogged by protests and a huge annual pro-democracy rally to mark the day when Hong Kong was handed over to Chinese rule. From the tarmac, Xi encouraged Hong Kongers to, quote, "look forward to the future, making sure one country, two systems can work smoothly and continue," end quote. Xi is referring to the principle by which Hong Kong retains limited autonomy and freedoms. Xi said the 20th anniversary of the city's handover from the UK to China on July 1st is a huge event, quote, "for the country and for Hong Kong."